Well, good morning, everybody. This morning I have one of Frankston's playing coaches in the early days in the 70s, Ken Rowe. Good morning, Ken.
Morning, Adrian.
How are you?
I'm well.
That's good. I've been doing these segments with a lot of different stalwarts of the footy club and some of the more recent coaches. So we're doing this obviously remotely during COVID. So therefore not wearing masks, but it's good to have you on board. I had a bit of a look at your history, Rowie, back to the Melbourne Football Club, and I know that prior to that you were up the bush, but in 1964 you came to Melbourne um, as a raw recruit. I'm not sure what sort of position you were playing. You wore number 30, and round 5 against Geelong. What's your memories of joining the Melbourne Footy Club back in '64?
Well, I was at uni. I'd played a couple of years after being educated at Wesley, and then I had 2 years playing A grade amateurs, and then I went down to Melbourne in '64. I couldn't break into the side in '64. That was a premiership year for Melbourne, so they had a pretty solid backline. But then Doc Rowett went to Hong Kong or something. So in '65, I had my first game and I played on the back line then. And then '66, I sort of established myself at centre half back. And then, unfortunately, because I was bonded to the education department, I got sent to Numurkah. So that unfortunately ended my football career. Norm Smith wanted me to drive down and train with Francis Burke. He was coming down every week, train with him at Shepparton. But I went to sleep one Friday night, coming down to a practice match in March, and ended up in a wheat paddock in the Gambie. So I thought that wasn't too good. So I went back and in March I signed with Shepparton.
Right. Okay. And then you were playing coach of Shepparton in '67, I think.
Well, '67,
68,
yeah,
69.
In '67 I already had a coach, so they appointed me assistant coach, coaching the seconds. Right. And I won a flag there with the seconds, and then '68, '69, and '70 I coached the seniors. We won a flag in '68, another flag in '69. We got knocked off in the preliminary final in '70, but I coached the seconds for premiership that year too. So in the 4 years I got 4 flags, which was quite good.
Yeah, fantastic. And then you came to Frankston in '71. I know you had a few choices, but someone convinced you to come to Frankston. I'm just wondering who that was and how that happened.
That was the old silver tongue, Wixie. After the success up in Shep, Melbourne offered me the assistant coaching job at Melbourne. The only condition was that I couldn't play. I had to be a non-playing coach. And I was still quite young then. I was in the mid-20s, I suppose. So Sandringham offered me a job, and Frankston, and Wixie talked me into taking the Frankston job.
Right. Okay. And what school were you at when that was happening?
I was at Bond Beach. Yeah,
you're at Bond Beach, so Frankston wasn't that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were captain coach in '71 to '74. You won the best and fairest at the club in 1972.
Yeah.
And what's your recollection of coming to Frankston and getting to training and seeing all the fantastic recruits that you had in '71 onwards? What's your recollection of the time at Frankston when you first arrived and through those years?
Well, it was always a bit of a battle. It seems to be Frankston's misfortune. I wasn't aware, but that first year they had an $80,000 debt came about by a workers' compensation claim, something like that. So we didn't have any money to pay players. And in those days, in the VFA, you had to have half a dozen people who had a bit of league experience. And we didn't have that. So it was a bit of a battle. We could beat the Northcotes and Yarraville's and Morty Alex, but Werribees and Geelong West and Coburg, the sides that had more AFL players or VFL players in those days, they were a bit hard to handle. So we really just a middle order side in those days.
Yeah. And there were some characters that you played with. I've just written a couple down. Vaughan Ellis.
Yeah, we had Vaughan for a while. We had some really good footballers. Well, a few have played a bit of league footy. Jeff Slade came down from Melbourne. Junga later on from Melbourne. Harry Scrayer and Alan Bloomfield
Right.
played with us for a year or two, but we had some terrific footballers. Jimmy Renouf was a champion. He'd played football at Port Melbourne, and Rod
Yeah.
McNabb. Peter Lovelock should have played AFL football. He'd have been
Yep.
a terrific forward pocket if St Kilda had ever thought of snapping him up.
Yep.
So we had Ray Blake was a good player. Greg Beeban was a good player.
Yeah.
Adrian Lloyd was in the wings there at that stage too.
Yeah, I was doing my best, mate. I was just an average player trying to get a kick, but I used to try to get on well with the coaches so they give me an opportunity. And, you know, I was just a clean living young lad at those days.
But I think one of the good things, the club there, I mean, Wixie held the show together. They were terrific guys. Con Pavlo was he
Yep.
was in everything, and
Yeah.
Freddie Hepner and Bob Bodicum was the runner, and Jeff Heron and Peter Watson. There were a lot of terrific guys around the club at that stage.
Yeah. Junga tells the story that he had picked him in the side, and he thought he was right to play, and he walked in ready to play, and he had to tell you that I'm sorry, mate, they wouldn't clear me. Was that right? For Brian?
I can't remember that.
He told me the story about that you picked him to play, and he turned up to play and you're addressing the team, and he had to tell you that he hadn't been cleared by Paran for that particular week. But he keeps pumping himself up and says he was a very good footballer. And Rowie always used to say that he was one of the best he'd ever coached.
Well, Junga was a good footballer. Junga knew all the umpires. That was one of the advantages that if you came down from a bit of senior football, the VFA umpires that obviously umpired up there. So
Right.
Junga always knew their Christian names, and he got more goals from pushes in the back than anyone, I think.
Right. Okay.
Don't tell him that, though.
Yeah. No. Well, obviously he hasn't got any right to reply because he's already been on beside the bar.
No, Junga was a great footballer. I mean, in all seriousness, Junga had all the skills. He just needed to be another 2 inches taller and another, a few pounds heavier, and he would have been a terrific full forward.
Yeah.
And in senior footy up in the AFL at Melbourne and Carlton, he was just a bit light.
Yep. Now, so after Frankston Footy Club, you went back to Melbourne, didn't you, as a committee member for a period of time?
In 1975, I went overseas for the year, and then I came back in '76, and Ray Davies was coaching, and Ray wanted a permanent back pocket, and he said, "Would you come back and just play in the back pocket? We haven't got a bad side." So they convinced me to play on the condition that's where I played. After about 5 games, we were going on pretty well. And Macy sent the runner out and said, "You've got to go on the ball," because we were beating Werribee by 20 goals or something. And I said, no, read the contract. I'm a back pocket player. Anyhow, eventually the runner came out again, and I said, not interested anyhow. They started to threaten me a bit, so I went on the ball, which I'd never done before. Went for the first knockout, and I ended up on the knees, and a guy from Werribee came flying through and kneed me in the middle of the back and knocked my ribs off my sternum.
Oh,
so that was the end of my football career.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Right.
Yeah. Anyhow, in 77, 78, Melbourne Footy Club, because the Goulburn Valley was in their zone, they got me to help them with their recruiting up there because I knew all the players and the kids up there. And then in 1978, they invited me onto the committee. And I was on the committee there from 78 to 87. Yep. And I started scholarship programs, and I started the international recruiting program, which was quite interesting. I saw Ken Beck on the wing one day with Hawthorn, and he went up and there was no one within 20 metres of him, and he punched the ball. And I thought, now, they've just got a big ruckman running around all day, just contesting. So I thought there's got to be some people overseas who can do that. So I got on to Lindsay Gaze, who'd played under-19 football at Melbourne. And Lindsay said there's plenty of American basketballers that miss the Pro Cup, and they either go to West Germany or they go to the Philippines, but they'd be keen to come to Australia. So we brought out a couple of big guys from America.
Right.
And actually, Rod McNabb was with Melbourne, and he was coaching these guys on how to play football. But they both got injured, and then we hooked onto a school in Ireland. We thought we'd try Gaelic football, and we sent Barry Richardson and Brass over here, and that's how we got Jimmy Steins.
Right.
So that was my initiative.
Early in the piece with recruiting from Ireland and America.
Yep, we were the first. Yep.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's obviously the way it's going right now. Now, just for the sake of the exercise, when you said Nabby, that's Rod McNabb, played
Rod
at Frankston.
McNabb, yeah.
One of best and fairest, just for the people that are listening that don't know Nabby, but Nabby still living up near Warrigal. I've just spoke to him recently.
Well, Rod McNabb spent hours at the Melbourne Footy Club kicking the footy of Jimmy Steins and the other Irish guys, teaching them some of the fundamentals of football.
Fantastic. And you were made a life member of Melbourne Footy Club as well.
Yeah, I'm a life member of the football club. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, I just want to go into the educational part of it, Rowie. You obviously came down. You went to Bond Beach. You went to Coringal for a while, and then you took over as principal of Frankston High School, and were there from 1988 to 2001. And you're credited as really changing the way that school operated. So tell us about your time at Frankston High School when you first arrived and how it was sort of transformed. I read a bit about Joan Kerner and Jeff Kennett sort of gave responsibility back to the financial and staffing decisions back to the education department, which probably helped in relation to how you'd run the business. But you credited as doing a fantastic job for Frankston High School. So tell us through that, go through that journey with us.
Well, in 86, when I was at Coringal, I was awarded a teaching fellowship to Canada. So I went over to Edmonton in Canada in 86, and that was a terrific year for me from an educational point of view. And then in 87, I was acting principal at Coringal. In 88, appointed to Frankston High School. But Frankston High was a pretty run-down place there. The staff had been there for years. It was a bit of a retirement village, and I went there full of enthusiasm. But more importantly, I was quite entrepreneurial, and I was a recruiter. So the first thing I had to do was to recruit a good staff, and I had a contact in the staffing office in the city who'd played footy with Richmond. So between the two of us, in the first 3 years we were there, I recruited the best staff I could get from around the state. And that was really the difference. But I think the big problem that when I came to Frankston, as you would understand, Adrian, Frankston's always suffered with a bit of a self-esteem problem. The media, all sorts of people have attacked Frankston and rubbish Frankston and so on. So I had to convince the kids that Frankston was a great place and Frankston High School was a great school and be proud of it and so on. So I had to go on a really positive approach to, and I started them winning sporting contests, and I introduced the band, the music program, and I introduced the sporting program and so on. And then I was quite entrepreneurial, and we built a swimming pool, we built a basketball stadium, we built a music centre without 1 cent from the education department.
Wow.
And, we introduced a laptop computer program with the first government school in Australia to do that. So we had a lot of initiatives, and that built a high level of excitement in the school community. And that's continued to this day. It's humming along pretty well in the school.
So it's really like running a business, isn't it? It's like when you're doing that, trying to reinvent itself and get the right people in the right spots and run it as a business.
Absolutely, yeah. Have the right expectations and so on, and the sort of right hands-on sort of leadership. I reckon I learned a lot of my leadership in football clubs. And I think football clubs are, they're really a life sort of institution, and I think I learned a lot of my leadership skills there from a couple of pretty good presidents and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you were given an Order of Australia, and it was in relation to the work you've done in the Frankston community, Frankston area. Tell us about the Order of Australia. Why would that be bestowed upon you?
Well, when I retired from football, whenever they formed a committee on Frankston, because I've been president of the Rotary Club, principal of the high school, coach of the footy team, I had a lot of contacts. So whenever they formed a committee in Frankston, they said, "Oh, you've got to get Rowie on it because he knows everyone." So I ended up, with Wixie, with Proudly Frankston, trying to sort of improve the self-esteem of people in the city. I was involved in the committee for Greater Frankston, starting that. I was on some station committees and heavily involved in Frankston Rotary. So with all those sort of areas, I had an opportunity to sort of contribute to Frankston. Yeah. And
I think and you still live in the area. You still live down here, and you've made it your home from with your wife Sue, and
Yep.
spent most of your life here, and enjoy the town, and
Oh yeah.
and still make a contribution.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love Frankston. I think it's an amazing town, and it's got it. The thing that frustrates me is it's got such enormous potential, and there are various organisations in Frankston that don't really let it get going. They hold it back a bit. That's a big frustration.
Right. Okay. And I just want to touch on another thing which we've just started at Frankston Footy Club, which you've got yourself involved with, formed by Ian Dicker, the player welfare and mentor part of our business, where we can help young blokes. What are they going to be doing when they're 30, when they finish footy, and how do we recruit players and find them jobs? And so you're involved with that, and we're looking forward to your contribution and being part of that team.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific initiative. I think that when players at that stage of their life aren't sure where they're going and so on, and they often their parents can't give them that sort of, they haven't had the experience to guide them into tertiary schools or into employment. And I think that's a great initiative of the football club to help these young guys, and I'm sure they'll appreciate that, have a bit of a helping hand and a few mentors to support them.
Yep, sure. Well, Ken, you have made a fantastic contribution to Frankston and the area since arriving back in those early days, and fantastic contribution to the Melbourne Football Club and the Frankston Football Club, and you continue to serve on Frankston Rotary. We've appreciated your time this morning, Ro. You've done a great job for our town, and I look forward to working with you through this Mentors program. And enjoy the rest of your weekend with Sue. And did you actually, can I ask you one more question? With Sue, did you meet Sue prior to coming to Frankston?
Yeah, I met Sue Sue was teaching at Marupna when I was up at Numurkah.
Oh, right. I was thinking whether we can claim that sort of association at Frankston too, but it was before then.
No.
Okay. All right, mate. Great talking to you, Ken, and look forward to working with you again, as I said, throughout our next season, 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian, and good luck with the club's lucky to have you in that position, and I think many of us are very prepared to support you as much as we can, and good luck with the work.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ken. Thank you.